Trump has won a second term. Whether you're celebrating, worried, or just buckling up for the ride, there's one thing we can all agree on. This is going to bring some major changes. But what will a Trump 2.0 administration actually look like? Today, we're not just speculating. We're breaking down the biggest changes that could happen over the next 4 years. From America First policies and economic changes to foreign relations and public reactions, we're covering the good, the bad, and the unpredictable. All right, let's dive right into domestic policies. During his first term, Trump's focus on an America First agenda led to major moves, like scaling back on environmental regulations, tax cuts, and pushing for border security. A second term would be a chance to double down on these efforts. First up, immigration. Trump might push for more restrictions, reviving the border wall project with greater intensity and implementing stricter regulations on visas. For some, this would mean fewer illegal border crossings and a boost in national security. But for others, it raises questions about America's openness and diversity. Will these policies strengthen America, or will they close the door on opportunities for those looking to build a life here? On the economic side, Trump's tax cuts could be expanded even further. He may push for additional corporate and income tax cuts, aiming to fuel job creation and keep more money in the pockets of Americans. That sounds pretty good if you're looking at your paycheck, right? But here's the downside. Cutting taxes means less revenue for the government, which could lead to cuts in public programs like Medicare, education funding, or even infrastructure. Plus, these tax cuts are funded by, you guessed it, national debt. So while short-term effects might feel great, we could be piling on debt for future generations. And if he also scales back on climate regulations again, we might see economic gains, but at what cost to the environment? And let's not forget executive orders. Trump could use these to bypass Congress and get his agenda moving fast. But is that a bold leadership move or a recipe for chaos? But this is just what's happening at home. What about how the rest of the world will react? Next, we're diving into Trump's foreign policy and what that means for the global stage. Foreign policy is where things could get really interesting. Trump has always kept other nations on their toes, and a second term would likely mean a tougher stance on China, more pressure on allies to pay their share in NATO, and renewed trade deals favoring the United States. Now, the upside of this strategy is a stronger U.S. economy in theory. More jobs could be created in America if we produce and buy made-in-the-USA goods. Plus, by holding allies accountable, Trump could keep American tax dollars from supporting defense costs abroad. Something he argues isn't fair to the average American taxpayer. But here's the catch. Reducing support for NATO could weaken our alliances and lead to tension with allies, who may feel abandoned by the United States. And what happens if China responds to tough policies by hiking tariffs, hitting American consumers with higher prices? The last trade war drove up costs, and we could see this happen again. Imagine a world where the United States isn't the go-to leader of the free world. Could countries like China and Russia step into the gap? And how would that impact us here at home, in terms of security and economy? And while this may sound like high-level politics, remember, these global moves impact things right down to your grocery bill, your tech prices, even where your favorite clothes are made. Let's get into how it hits our everyday lives. Now, let's talk about what's probably the most unpredictable part, how the public will react. Trump's return to the Oval Office would definitely energize his base, but it could also reignite the flames of opposition movements. We're looking at the potential for large-scale rallies, protests, and even deeper divisions between political sides. Here's the good part. Political engagement could hit new highs. People who feel strongly on both sides would have an opportunity to advocate, protest, and make their voices heard. We could see more people taking an active role in shaping policies. But the downside, our country could feel more divided than ever. Families, friends, and communities could struggle to find common ground in such a polarized atmosphere. Now here's where things get even more intense. Imagine if social media becomes the battleground for opinions more than it already is. Trump is known for his direct communication style on social media, And we could see a second wave of controversies, bans, and counterbans as platforms respond to heightened tensions. So what about the economy? If you ask Trump, he's all about growing American business and giving Americans a financial break. Expect even more pro-business policies, possibly cutting down regulations that companies see as red tape. And with a focus on American-made goods, we could see a real surge in manufacturing jobs. Now imagine your paycheck gets a bit bigger. Great, right? But there's a flip side. These policies could raise inflation, making the cost of living higher. And with tax cuts leading to a rising national debt, we could be looking at a ticking economic time bomb down the road. If investors lose confidence, it might mean a market drop, even a recession. It's high risk, high reward. Could we see a booming economy, or are we setting up for a major bust? And remember, the economy doesn't just live in spreadsheets. It affects your rent, your job opportunities, and your future. Are we ready to take on that gamble? So what happens if Donald Trump wins a second term? Some might see this as an era of bold moves, stronger borders, and revived American industries. Others might worry about division, global instability, and economic uncertainty. Regardless of where you stand, there's no question, a second Trump term would mean big changes for the United States and the world. But now I want to know what you think. Would Trump's policies help or hurt America? Could he change the course of history, or are we headed for turbulence? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Next time, we're diving into some of the wildest political what-ifs, so hit that bell if you don't want to miss it.